Try that with me.
Hi, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. It's so great to be with you in your living rooms or offices or couches or dining room tables, wherever you are, we're all together. It is always a pleasure to share Shabbat together. And tonight, as the sun goes down, Kendra Simmons and I can feel you with us from around the city and really around the country. We know that we're joined by folks all over the place who are connecting with us through the miracle of technology and social media. We're really happy that you're with us tonight to welcome Shabbat with song and with prayer together. I want to welcome all of you that are joining us by live stream on our Emanu website, and particularly those who are with us on our Facebook live video. A reminder, as we did last week, I do want to encourage you, if you're able, to join us on Facebook so that later on in our service, when we have an opportunity to share some thoughts and blessings and answers to some questions, that Facebook live video chat window will be the place where we'll ask you to type in your thoughts later on in our service. This evening, you won't need to have an open prayer book on your lap, because we'll be sharing the words of the prayers and songs we're offering tonight on slides that will show up on your screen. So all you need to do is watch the screen in front of you, sit back, enjoy the people around you and the place that you call home as we welcome Shabbat together.
Just a note about the music tonight. We had planned for this evening to be a heritage Shabbat, and we were really looking forward to having Ann Frobeder, our organist, and our choir, and to hear the majestic music that we had planned. So some of the music that I've chosen for tonight is inspired by what we would have heard had it been a heritage Shabbat. And so we can just imagine those beautiful tones of the choir and organ. And so now we're going to light candles, and I'm going to invite my family. I hope they'll come join me to light candles with me. I have some special things here. These are my grandmother's candlesticks and my dad's Kiddush cup, and some challah covers, which will soon be covering some challah. It is actually baking in the oven, I believe, as we speak. It just came out, so we can put it there in a minute. Maybe David want to read for us?
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Light. You guys want to bring in the light with me? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Shabbat. Shabbat
So we have lit our candles. Maybe you've taken a moment to light the candles on your own table as well. And we're going to move into the beginning of the Kabbalat Shabbat section of our service. Kabbalat Shabbat, the welcoming, the receiving of Shabbat. This hymn, L'cha Dodi, that we offer for Kabbalat Shabbat is a hymn that's all about the experience of entrance. This is the song with which we invite the Sabbath bride to enter our places of worship, that we open the doors and open our hearts to welcome Shabbat in to be with us, to join our hearts and to join our community. So as we offer this L'cha Dodi, let's take just a moment to think about the experience of being opened up inside, to think about what you are opening up to let in this Shabbat. What door inside yourself do you hope to open up in the day ahead and in the week that lies just on the other side of Shabbat?
Shamor bezachor b'divorika, ishmiyanu echomivcha, Adonai elanu shmo echad, Hashem tiferet b'tila, lekatoti, likatona, elishama. Shalom, עטרת פניו, גם בשמחה ובצהריים, תוך אמוני הסגולה. בואי חלם, בואי חלם, לכתותי, לקראת חלם, ובשבת. Do we have Rabbi Hayon over there?
This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim. Before we continue with the next piece of music, the Ahavat Olam blessing, as I promised, I want to offer you a short prompt for something to think about. Our question for you this week is, where do you find peace? And this week, it's a rare and precious commodity. So I want to ask you to think for a moment about the places in your life and in your world where you find peace. And share your answer to that question with us in the Facebook chat over on the comments to this video. Let us know where you find peace. And we'll come back to share and examine some of those answers in just a moment. Offer the Hashkivenu prayer, which just describes God as a Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Torah u'mitzvot, ukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'sholtenu, u'kumeinu nasiach b'chukecha, ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו לאורך ימינו, ובהם נגי יומם ולילה, נגי יומם ולילה. אהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. אוהב עמו ישראל.
As we prepare our hearts for Shema, our tradition's explanation of what it means to find oneness in God, let's take just a moment now to allow those words to guide us to become aware of our own oneness with each other, our connectedness with humanity, with the world, with the universe around us, and with God.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. We continue with the Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ela asher anochi metzavecha hayom alevavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam ve'shivtecha bebeitecha ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Beautiful. As we prepare to move forward toward our Michamocha prayer, a reminder to take a moment in our Facebook chat box and share with us something in which you find peace. Now we continue with this meditation before Michamocha. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt. There is a better place, the promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. And so now as we get ready to move into the part of our service, which is occupied by the Hashkivenu prayer, the expression of gratitude and faith in God's presence, we're going to turn now to your words so that I can share some of the resources that you shared about how you find peace in your own lives. Thank all of you for being so generous and forthcoming about the places that you find peace. I see that a lot of us find peace in the presence of their families, in the nearness of people in your household, and in knowing that their families, members of your family, are with you in spirit, even if they aren't with you physically. A lot of people mentioning parts of the natural world, the sounds of the birds, being outside in nature, are a source of peace to you. I know that that's a really reassuring and reaffirming experience, as all of us try to find some moments of tranquility and reassurance in a world that seems to be always changing and very difficult. People find peace in friendship and the community where they call home. JJ Silk finds peace in the performance of everyday rituals. Beautiful. A lot of people talking about the way that we can use our bodies to help bring us to an experience of peace through meditation, through breathing and the awareness of our breath, through the use of our bodies in exercise, and in the nearness of the bodies of people we love, our spouses, our children, our family. I'm grateful to see also how many of you take comfort and peace in this sacred community of ours. Please know that this is a great source of peace for me and for my family as well. I'm so grateful that you're here and so grateful that we have each other. And so now we will continue with this English reading that expresses the themes of the Hashkivenu prayer. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, Haporei Sukat Shalom Aleinu Va'al Kol Amo Yisrael Va'al Yerushalayim.
We're going to continue with Vishamru, and I am just going to, I have the choir, the voices of the choir just are going to be with me on this one. I've found that I need Shabbat even more during this time as a way to mark time. The days run together. Each day feels like a week, and each week feels like a month. And so having Shabbat to mark the time that we have arrived at this moment together feels really special. So we sing Vishamru with that in mind. Join me.
In just a moment, we're going to be moving into the central section of our prayer service, the time that invites us to share the prayers of our hearts in addition to the prayers of our liturgy. And so as we do, I want to share with you another prompt, another invitation for prayer and reflection. If you take a moment now and think about a prayer or a blessing that you would like to share with this community on this Shabbat, take just a second and think about what prayer or what blessing you would like to share with our community here joining us now live, and those that will come to watch this service sometime later. What is your prayer and the blessing that you would like to share? We'll come back to these prayers and reflections in a moment. And for now, we'll prepare for our Amidah moment. We're going to begin with a musical meditation, reminding us to open our lips and our hearts to prayer. And then we'll take just a bit of time for our own quiet individual reflection before we have a chance to share and reflect on each other's words of prayer and blessing.
Adonai Zipatai Tivtah Ufi Agi Tehiratecha Adonai Zipatai Tivtah Ufi Agi Tehiratecha תפתח ובידי תהילתך אדוני שפתי תפתח ובידי תהילתך.
Take a moment silently.
I wish I could bottle up and distribute all the prayers and blessings that I see you've shared in the chat here. It is inspiring and moving and humbling. Amen to all of these, to the blessings of strength and courage and comfort. Thank you, Carl. To the blessing of resilience, Cheryl, thank you. I think all of us need a little bit more of that for peace and for comfort. Certainly the importance of a prayer for all of those doctors and nurses, caregivers, researchers, scientists, healers of all kinds that are helping patients and helping our community deal with the medical pandemic that we're immersed in right now. Blessings for all of those that are taking care of those who are vulnerable and suffering. We are all of us, so grateful for this community that supports and uplifts and nurtures all of us. All of your prayers are our prayers too. We hope that those of us that are connected tonight in this circle of prayer and those of us beyond this circle will feel the sense of connectedness and oneness and community that all of you talk about in your prayers and blessings. I'm grateful to have all of you a part of my circle, and your prayers are mine as well. And so we'll conclude this section of our service with another blessing that is one we offer all the time, a prayer for peace in our worlds, peace in our community. So we'll offer that musical prayer now, this blessing, Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav HaYisrael Amcha Tasih Le'olam. Shalom Rav HaYisrael Amcha Tasih Le'olam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol ha'shalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol ha'shalom. Le'tov v'necha mevarech et amcha Yisrael. Lechol le'kulchol shana b'shalmecha. Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom.
A number of us mentioned the importance of prayers for healing at this time. We offer this prayer every Shabbat, every time we get together to pray, but somehow this prayer seems to take on added weight and urgency this week. So as we prepare to sing the Mishaberach, we prepare our hearts and our thoughts to include all of those who are suffering, those who are ill in our own circle of care and concern and community, and those beyond it as well. On this Shabbat, members of our Emanu community are offering prayers of healing for Bradley Borden, Melba Berman, Jennifer Carey, Michelle Cohen, Miles Cohn, Maya Creeder, Jay Empel, Alan Garber, Ellie and Leah Jakubowicz, Sarah James, Vicky Yonda, Lawrence Levy, Herman Liu, Jesse Vasquez, Carol Wasserstein, Roger Williams, Baruch Le Bentevia, and all of those who are suffering the effects of this coronavirus pandemic. We sing, we pray together.
מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Bless those in need of healing with it the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
I've just a few short announcements to share with you about some updates here in our community and in our congregation. Just another reminder that all of the programs and services and meetings that would normally be held at our Emanu Synagogue building, all of them have been now moved to electronic platforms, or we've postponed them or canceled them entirely from now all the way through the 5th of April. We are doing our best to provide the very most up-to-date links and updates to our programming schedule on our website, and that will include the way that you can access all of our Shabbat worship programs, experiences, and learning. So do take a moment and check out the Emmanuel website. Among those calendar changes that we've had to make in recent days is the very, very difficult decision to cancel our second night Passover Seder this year. We were really sad to have to make this decision, but when considering the urgencies of public health and the realities of the world around us, we really had no choice. We do want to let you know that Houston Catering Concepts, our preferred caterer at the temple, is making available Passover Seder in a box. This is traditional Seder foods all in one convenient container. You can enjoy that way the traditional Seder in your own home. There's information on Seder in a box on our website or in a number of different publications and communications from the temple. We are very excited that in the next few days, we'll be sharing some additional Passover resources and opportunities pertaining to worship and learning and musical opportunities. Those will come out in the next week or so. Please keep an eye on the website and on your email and on social media so that you can take advantage of these terrific resources for your family's own observance of Passover. Lastly, to stay up to date on our messaging, to learn more about our program and worship offerings, to see updates about life cycle observances in our congregation and more, you can keep all of those in one convenient spot by going to the coronavirus response page on our website. Once again, our website is emmanuelhouston.org. We hope to see you there so that you can keep up to date with everything that's going on as it develops. It is an unusual time in our world and in our community. Certainly, it feels unnecessary to say that again. It's a time that has generated a whole range of emotional responses, from depression to fear to anxiety to uncertainty. I and other members of the clergy have had folks speak to us about their feelings of fear, of sleeplessness, of worry, and we've shared lots of conversations about what this experience will mean to us as emotional people and as spiritual beings. The threat of this virus is no longer imaginary, it is very real. And we are afraid, many of us, for very good reasons, because of the effects of this experience on our health and the health of those we love. on our economy and on the jobs that allow us to provide for our families. In some ways, if we're not feeling nervous or afraid at this time, that's a sign that we may not have our wits about us entirely. At this point, the science is clear cut. The statistics are undeniable. We have, in America, you may have seen just past the milestone of having 100,000 people positively diagnosed with the coronavirus. So in the context of that reality in our community and in our world, I want to share a question with you that I got from a member of our community recently. They reached out to me in the midst of these feelings of fear and anxiety, and they asked, is it bad to be afraid? They asked Jewishly, is there a commandment, is there a guidance, a tradition, or a custom that a faithful Jew shouldn't be afraid? Is our fear a sign that our faith isn't strong enough? Is, God forbid, it a sin to be afraid? And from one perspective of Jewish religious life, and religious life more broadly, fear may be the opposite of faith. There are so many religious texts and traditions that seek to dispel human fear about threats and dangers in the world. All of us, no matter our background, where we live or where we come from, have heard one or another religious authority seeking to assure us that all we have to do is believe in God and everything will be okay. And those who say that do, let's be fair, have abundant scriptural evidence to back up that claim. We see it all the time in religious literature. Looking just in the Torah, the commandment not to be afraid is repeated 39 times. 39 times the Torah says, do not be afraid. That's a lot. And it appears even in the Haftarah from this week. The Haftarah portion this week comes from the book of the prophet Isaiah, who commands thunderingly, Al tifchadu ve'al tirhu, do not be afraid, do not tremble. But if we want to understand the phenomenon of fear a little bit more deeply in Jewish tradition, it's helpful for us to look at the way that the Hebrew Bible talks about fear. And to be precise about it, there are actually at least two different Hebrew words that the Torah uses for fear. Two big ones, each of which has a distinct meaning. One type of fear is called pachad, and the other is called yirah. Pachad might be translated better than fear as something like terror or dread. This kind of fear, pachad, is the kind of overwhelming fear that floods our limbic system and can effectively paralyze us. We're so frightened. This is the kind of fear that comes out of the chemical response from the most primal parts of our brains. It is an irrational fear. It is a fear that most times is much larger than the object that triggered it in the first place. Pachad is the kind of fear that leads to panic, that leads to rage or to grief. And very often, a lot of pachad comes from threats outside of us, our perception of those threats that are imaginary, or at least they are exaggerated. Pachad is triggered by threats that, realistically speaking, aren't serious enough to generate that kind of animal instinct terror response. So that's one, that's pachad. The second kind of fear is called yirah. It's a very different kind of fear. It's a kind of fear that might be translated better into the English word awe. It's a kind of breathlessness that we feel when we recognize our own smallness, when we recognize how unworthy we are, how outmatched we are by something outside of ourselves that's much larger, much more overpowering than we are, or that we can hope to become. But what's interesting is that the emotional response to yirah isn't terror, it's not paralysis. It can often be a feeling of being energized, actually, of being filled with wonder, feeling inspired in the literal sense of that word, meaning inflated with spirit. This is attached to what is now the most familiar, most famous teaching of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who wrote about what he called radical amazement. For Heschel, he was describing a sense of wonder that we feel when we recognize the majesty and the mystery of the enormous, vast universe outside of ourselves. For Heschel, cultivating that sense of awe is the reason that underlies our decisions to do all of the Jewish things we do. Because living Jewish life is a way of helping us remember the miraculous nature of the experience of being alive. Heschel taught that that kind of mindfulness is this is a quote now, what he said is the prerequisite for an authentic awareness of that which is. In other words, we need that mindfulness, and without it, we can't fully appreciate what it means to be alive. Even when our temptation is to be drawn into selfishness, to be drawn into the narrow concerns of our own limited needs and our own selfish, self-centered experiences, Jewish life asks us to contemplate the grandeur of the universe, to turn outward and appreciate the majesty of everything around us, and then in turn to act in a way that is compatible with that sense of awe. So to return to our two types of fear, pachad is the feeling you get when the thing you're afraid of is allowed to grow and expand to unrealistic and outsized dimensions. Yirah is what happens when our sense of awe and wonder allows us to grow, allows us to expand into new dimensions ourselves. When we recognize that the universe is asking something of us, it's appropriate for us to feel at the same time intimidated by the weight of that moment, but also to allow that weight to make us feel more significant ourselves, more consequential and important than we were before. That's the kind of fear that makes us more than what we were before, not less. Now, I want to be sure to say that I'm not suggesting that there's no place for pachad in the world, that there is no appropriate place or role for terror and dread in the world. There absolutely is. There is real danger out there in the world, and there are things that we need to be afraid of. I offer this teaching not to tell you that you should at all times swap awe and wonder for normal, logical, rational awareness and caution. There are real things to be really afraid of in the world. Sometimes fear is good. Fear is the thing that helps us preserve our health and safety. Fear is the reason we have lifeguards at the swimming pool and burglar alarms on our homes. Every time anyone gets behind the wheel of a car, I hope they're accompanied by a healthy dose of pachad, of fear that will help them make the right decisions to keep themselves and everyone else safe. There is a late 18th century spiritual master named Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. You may know him for his words that have been made into a familiar contemporary folk tune. The whole world, he taught, is a very narrow bridge. The important thing is not to be afraid. But beyond that simple, pithy teaching, at the core of Rabbi Nachman's theology is a very radical idea, and that is this. Rabbi Nachman taught that most of human suffering would be eradicated if we could learn to stop being afraid of things we have no need to fear. I want to invite you to take just a second and look back and try to remember over the past year or 3 years or 5 years, think about the things that made you the most afraid. Think about the things that kept you up at night, that made you nervous and anxious. How many of them really came to pass? Some of them, I'm sure, really came to pass and did real damage, but I would guess that the majority of the things that frighten us deep inside our animal self don't come to pass at all. And when we get into the habit of fearing things we don't need to fear, we weaken our ability to act with conscience and vision in the real world when we encounter things that really do deserve pachad and dread. The trick is to make sure that the things we're afraid of are the right things. That's the spiritual trick in these days too, when so much feels so frightening and there's so much to terrorize us in the street, on the news, on the internet. So much in the world out there feels so frightening and so overwhelming and so paralyzing. I think my hope for all of us on this Shabbat and on these days moving forward as we try to gauge the appropriate healthy amount of fear is not to tell you not to be afraid. Let your fear be the thing that ensures that you wash your hands and take precautions and keep your distance and preserve people that are sick and vulnerable from getting into harm's way. But I want to urge us to be careful and cautious and reflective so that the things we're afraid of are the right things in the right proportion. and to ensure that part of our spiritual task is not to let pachad, not to let terror get in the way of our yirah, in the way of our awe, our sense of majesty and wonder. Our job as spiritual beings is to preserve our physical, medical, emotional health. But the end goal of that work is to make sure that we survive another day so that we can transmit to our children and to our community the spiritual values of our tradition, of awe and wonder, of appreciation of the majesty and magic of the universe and of the underlying presence of God in all of it that keeps us alive and keeps us aware of who we are and who we can become. I want to wish you a healthy, safe weekend and a peaceful Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Friends, we are going to turn now, as we do every time we pray together, to take a moment of memory. We're going to take just a moment to turn our thoughts to the people no longer with us, to the members of our families, members of our community, of our circles of love and concern, to turn a thought and a prayer to them. And so at this time, our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth. Our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We take just a moment now to do the quiet work of memory and recollection. We think of our loved ones now whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we've drawn into our hearts with our own. On this Shabbat, our community calls to mind the Artsites of Bob Abramson, Louis Albert, Pauline Applebaum, Vida Sheps Avedon, Lucille Lyons Beck, Florence Berkman, Ethel Berman, Marvin Berkman, Ruby F. Billings, Milton Block, Gladys Slavin Brenner, Robert Bob Brooke, Leah Sersonsky, Lisa Clark, Arthur Clark, Maddie Clark, Morty Cohen, Hannah Gore Cohen, John H. Coleman, Marcia Colton, Grace Cowan, June Dante, Otis Dante, Michael David Darsky, Maurice Dubie Dubinsky, Wallace Dunn, Ida R. Epstein, Bernard Finkel, Francis Finkelstein, Frida Lewis Fox, Lonnie Frankel, Louis Freeman, Sam Gates, Sam Gardner, Murray Gary, David Goldenberg, Ida Ritchie Goodfriend, Ted Greenberg, Peggy Greenblatt, Earl Leonard Herring, J. Darwin Hirsch, Isidore Butch Hoffer, Idel Husid, Fanny Jacobson, Carolyn Jacobson, Hannah Kaplan, Morris R. Kaplan, Monette Karchmer, Aline Finger Kost, Rosalind Bunny Krinsky, Mina Kukas, Rhoda Labowitz, Ruth Lang, Lillian B. Lassoff, Jack Lavage, Anna Lehman, Jeannie Lee, Josephine Lessner, Elliot H. Levin, Ben D. Levine, Sylvia Levinson, Morris Levinson, Howard Lewis, Roselle Dolly Lip, Joan Lawrenson, Meyer Wolf Mandel, Sadie Mandel, Raymond Marcus, Maynard Marks, Mary B. Mayer, Rosalie Ruth Mellinger, Harriet Mellon, Milton Lewis Pine, Janice Perlis, Sadie N. Pesso, Byron Rance, Myron Robbins, Ruth Robinson, Alan Rockland, Simona Bodansky Roddy, Nathan Klein Rosenthal, Goldie S. Rothenberg, Glenn Rouncevel, Adele Sandler, Sydney Schindler, Leon G. Schwartz, William F. Siebel, Erwin Selzer, Herman Shapiro, Melvin Scheinberg, Ira B. Shepard, Sam Shifka, Irving Schulman, Edward Stein, Edith Stolben, Will Swerdloff, Jerome Allen Tarnopol, Henry Hank Tucker, Morris Unger, Nathan Ehrman, Reva Usher, Harris Weingarten, Saul Weingarten, Hannah Westheimer, and William Wolfe. The memories of all of them are with us as we turn our thoughts to them and our eyes to the words of Kaddish together. V'yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Ve'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chay d'chol Beit Yisrael. V'agala uvizman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam l'olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen.
And now it is time to offer a kiddush and motzi. And I don't know if my family wants to come join me again, David. We'll see if they join me. We have some really good challahs here. So, okay, my kids are on their way. I'll start. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh bereshit, Kilu yom tefillah lemikrae kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim, kibanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon, Inchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. L'chaim.
L'chaim.
Now, Rabbi Hayon, I'm sorry to tell you that I can't share this with you, but we have a Nutella challah over here.
What?
So,
I have a sad little piece of bread.
oh, well,
Terrible.
we'll have to meet up for Nutella challah.
All right.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. You guys want to have some of that? Oh my gosh. All right, we're going to close our service this evening with lefilach, some beautiful words. Lefilach, to a land that I will show you. Lech lecha, to a place you do not know. Lefilach, on your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lefilach, and I shall make your name great. Lefilach, and all shall praise your name. Lefilach, to the place that I will show you. L'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, lefilach.
Friends, as we make our way into this Shabbat and into the days ahead, I ask God's blessing on you. I ask that we continue to know and recognize all of our blessings, to recognize the majesty of the world around us, and maybe most of all, to recognize that we can be a blessing to each other, to be sources of kindness and support and compassion and care, not just to those who are suffering, but to all of those around us. May we continue to feel our blessings. May we continue to be a blessing. Shabbat Shalom.
And you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Let me love.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.